Hello guys, I hope you're all having a brilliant day today. So today I'm going to talk about the books that I read in September, that's last month. I read 9 books, including comics and stuff, so let's get started. I've read some good books, I think 4 stars and 3 5 stars. So the first one is a random pickup. I picked it up at Gay's the Word, a gay bookstore in London. I never heard of it. It's called Crimson by Nivea Corneliusen, and it's a book that takes place in Greenland, and there's something really special about this book, and it was completely different from what I expected. And I love it when that happens, when you pick up a book and it's just like, wow, like I was not expecting this, and I've never read anything like it. So you basically follow all these characters, and there's a character list in the beginning. It's quite simple, like you'll not mess up the characters, but then you get to follow each of the characters during the same type of period, so you know all the time what's going to happen after you read the first story. But that didn't really bother me at all, because each of the characters are super different. It's super like, it's very artistic, and I think in Scandinavia we can relate a lot to these type of books. It's a completely different writing style than what you get in the US and even like England, because we're much more like straight to the point and not so much dallying around. It's a different type of writing styles, and you can definitely tell that this is like more of a Nordic country, so but I really liked it. It's a translation from, I don't, you say Greenlandic? But yeah, it's about like sexuality and coming of age type of story, so if you like that type of thing, I definitely recommend it if you want to read something completely different. After that, I read Night's Shadow by Sebastian de Castell. This is the second book in the Great Coats quartet. I think I'm saying that right. So this one was so much better than the first one. Like, I liked the first one, but it was kind of short and rushed in a way, even though there wasn't like too much crammed in. It was a little rushed, but this was amazing. Like 5 stars. I don't understand why people don't really talk about the series. I think it's brilliant. I really liked it. It's refreshing for a fantasy story. At the same time, it's keeping a lot of like the old tropes when it comes to, it has like duchess and duchy, you know, duchess and dukes and duchess in it. So it's like an older type of fantasy setting, but it has a very refreshing feel to it, which I really like about the story. The 3 guys who are like the main characters in this have a great like bromance situation going on. It has loads of plot twists, betrayals. I love plot twists. It's like one of my favorite books, like favorite things in books. I think if a book doesn't have a plot twist, like, is it even a book? It's a really good fantasy, and I highly recommend it. After that, I read Dark Dawn by J. Kristoff. This is the 3rd one in the Nevernight Chronicles, and I did a whole reading vlog while I read this, so I'll keep it short, and if you want the whole story, I recommend it, and you should check it out. It's the conclusion, so it has a very epic ending, which is kind of like expected, and a lot of the things we've been wondering in previous books are very early cleared up, and so the whole story is more about like the conclusion, really wrapping things up. But I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars, but it's definitely my least favorite in the series so far, and the second one is definitely my favorite. But just this whole series as a whole, like, read it, it's amazing. It's like a on the brink YA and adult assassin fantasy in this like Venice kind of world with deserts, and you know, just read it. It's like a really great series. It's like port, like it's just amazing. Then finally, after so much time, I read Mostly Harmless by Douglas Adams. This is the final conclusion of the trilogy of 5 with The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I like this book much more than I like the 4th one, but the first 3 ones are way better, I think, than the last 2 in the series, and I think also that's why like the last 2 books are not talked about so much. But I'm really happy I finished it, and it definitely wrapped up some questions you had, and it brought like some things back, especially from the previous book, which takes place on Earth. Oh my god, words today is a little bit hard. But I'm just really happy I finished this, and it's like one of my favorite sci-fi series, but I just wish there was like more to it. I don't remember specifically what I didn't like so much about this one, but I think the previous books are just funnier. I didn't have so many like laugh out loud moments. But yeah, a very decent 4-star read. After that, you guys, I read Battle Royale by Kushun Takami, and if you have not read this book, like, what are you doing? Like, I just picked this up because I like the cover. Like, it's a reprint of the original, come on, focus. It's a retranslation of the original translation. So this is a little bit different, obviously, than the first translation. So this is like a Hunger Games concept, but it was published in like 99, I think, so it's like way before Hunger Games. It's basically about this 9th grade class in Japan who is taken out to an island, and then they're like, you guys all have to kill each other now. And it's just so good. Like, I've never, like in months, maybe like a year plus, I've never felt so engaged in a book. Like, all I could think about was this book. Like, I was just so into the story. I was like obsessed. I couldn't live my life when I was reading this book, and I constantly want to be reading it. Every chance I got, I was like reading it, and I was just like, it's like so up in your throat with excitement, and it's just amazing. Like, you really, really have to read this book. Like, it's gory in all the great Japanese ways, but it's also emotional. I cried. It's just everything. Like, this book is everything. And I also watched the movie, and I really like it. I like how the things they added and took away. I liked how they did the movie. It was really good. I really liked it. I'll definitely watch the movie again and definitely read the book, but the book was just amazing, amazing, amazing. Like, after every chapter, it says like how many students are remaining and that kind of thing, and it also has a map of all the zones that are like death zones. So every 6 hour, I think, like, there's certain zones where if you're in it, your color that they have is gonna explode and you die. And then they also have a list of all the participants in the class, and I was like crossing them out as they died, which I know feels really terrible, but they will remind you who is who, and like on the list it requires you to think a little bit, but I'm really bad with names and I had no problem with it, so gotta read this. So after reading something that was so exciting, I needed something that I knew was a little bit slower, so I finally picked up Dune by Frank Herbert, and this is a sci-fi classic. It's like published in the 60s, I believe. Yes, 65, and I've written loads of notes about this one, so if you guys want a non-spoiler review for this book, I'm happy to do one, but I'll just give you guys some information about it now. So I actually didn't hate this book, but I didn't really like it. The first 200 pages are like a living hell because there is only politics, and the politics are like so boring. Like, I really hated it. But then like this part of the book, like the middle section of the book, it's like more action, and there's more like desert type of stuff. There's these huge creatures that are in the desert called like worms, and there's also these type of people that live on the planet of Dune who worships these creatures. You're basically following this guy called Paul, and he goes down on the planet to create like alliances together with his dad, and then loads of things start to happen, and it's a lot, and I have to admit I was not like kept up with all the politics all the time, and sometimes the people, I got them mixed up and I didn't think it was super clear, and I wasn't really interested in the politics, but I really liked definitely the prophecy type of element with it. I liked the whole how the author explained when certain people were on drugs, or the sensations they had in their minds and their bodies. I think that part of it was really well explained, and I think it kind of makes up for the fact that it is a slower read, and some parts were just so good and the other parts were just like shit. So I think I gave it 3 stars because it's very varied, and I kind of see why it's a classic, but there's just so much good sci-fi that, you know, yeah. But I bought the second book, so I'm going to continue with the series, and we'll see. After that, I read Nimona. This is a very famous graphic novel. You're basically following, oh yeah, this is funny. On the back it says nemesis, dragons, science, symbolism. I was like, yes, like I like symbolism, science, dragons, nemesis. whatever. So I really liked all the characters in this, and the art is amazing, especially the main character Nimona. Like the way she just randomly changes hair, her story arc, like her origin story as a villain is just amazing. I loved how you get to follow the villains in this story. I'm not really sure if I like the relationship between the villain and the hero, like their backstory. I wasn't really a big fan of it. I'm really sorry about the light change. I hope you guys don't mind too much. But it's a colored graphic novel, which I really appreciate. I love colored graphic novels, and I think the humor is really funny. It's very lighthearted, and yeah, I recommend it as a graphic novel. I give it 4 stars. After that, I picked up Rick and Morty, the comic volume 2. Everyone was telling me that this comic is better than the first one, but maybe it's because of like everyone's hyping it up that I actually like the first one better, but I like the first one better. I didn't hate this one, but it was just a little bit dragging at times, and I didn't really like the stories, but I really liked the humor, and I think I gave it 4 stars. I highly recommend the comics if you read the series, but this one just wasn't my favorite of the 2. Then the last book I read this month was a recommended book to me. I'll add the name of the person that recommended it to me, so thank you. This is Meat Market by Juno Dawson. I have read another book by, I want to say they, but I'm so sorry if I messed that up, by her. I really like her writing already. I'm really interested in fashion. I love fashion if you don't know this already, so this was a great read. It's about this 17-year-old girl who gets scouted for this model agency, and she decides to take it, and she becomes a model, and she's not one of those people who are like anorexic or limits her eating. She just has a like naturally high metabolism, and this is not like a eating disorder story, which I also really appreciated. Actually, I was scared it was gonna like go that way. It's just about the fashion industry, and I haven't actually read or listened to the audiobook, but I think this would be a really cool audiobook because they have certain like in between dialogues between the chapters where there is a person asking the main character about, okay, so what happened next, like why did you do this or whatever, and then the main character goes on to talk about this event, and it had this suspense element, so it was very easy to lead you on. And then because the character is saying like, yeah, this was the first sign that like things weren't as they seemed or whatever, so it makes you really want to read on. And there's a very long introduction period where she gets into the story, but I think that was good, so the shift wasn't too big when things started to go downhill. But the characters in this were amazing. I think the friendships and relationships in this were amazing. Like all the friendships and relationships were represented really well. Very diverse story. I don't know, I really like this story. I think I gave it only 4 stars though because it isn't a favorite book, but I think it's definitely like a very important young adult book. And I think like a lot of the elements are, you know, true for our world today. Like big agencies or companies, like they need to be the ones that make the decision to change society because, you know, like we people are of course made up of society and there's a lot we can do, but the big corporations have so much more power and they can really change things, you know? And I think this was a great book, also for just younger people to read, I think. So 4 stars. So those are all the books that I read this month. I hope you guys enjoyed, and tell me below what books you read this month. I would love to know, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye!